There's a very good reason that when we talk about the big two in comics, we refer to Marvel and DC. They've lasted the longest out of everyone else in the game so far, and have written the book on how to make comic books, and more importantly, comic book characters. However, their way of doing things can be restrictive to say the very least. The lack of any permanence in their stories, for one, can be frustrating to fans, since it kinda kills investment in a story when Dick Grayson dies for the third damn time. Probably why they decided they'd be better off renaming him Rick Grayson? Really? Anyway, there are plenty of brilliant characters not from Marvel or the distinguished competition, so let's count them down. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are the 10 best comic book characters not from Marvel or DC. Number 10, Judge Dredd, 2000 AD. Dredd is a horrifying dystopian symbol of what an authoritarian police state could look like if it crept in. And while that message is lost on certain audiences, namely sly, "I am the law," Stallone, that doesn't make the character any less fascinating. Dredd patrols the streets of Mega City 1 as a judge, a law enforcement officer with the ability to arrest, try, and sentence an individual on the spot. Yeah, pretty scary, I know, but here's the thing, he's not a hero. Still one of the best characters, but not a hero all the same. Number 9, D. Image Comics. There are a lot of reasons to love the original run of Rat Queens from Image Comics. The fun cast of characters, the casual but no less detailed world building, and how it feels like, for the script, the writers just held their own D&D campaign and left it in all the character tangents the players go on. But out of all the great characters that make up the moldy metropolis of Palisade, D hails from the death cult that worships Enrigoth, a Lovecraftian squid god who offered prosperity for the cult for the low price of near constant blood sacrifice. As you can imagine, Dee took issue with this method of running things, slowly grew disillusioned with her faith, left her husband and people, and eventually joined up with the Rat Queen's mercenary band. What sets Dee apart is that her wit carries that tinge of world weariness that you'd expect from a backstory like hers, and it's really special to see play out in the comic itself. Number 8, Rosie, Boom Studios. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you took Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls, Bunny Bravo, and Bear Grylls, threw them all into a blender, and just hit the puree switch? Of course you have. Who hasn't? And fortunately, this great question of the universe has finally found its answer in Rosie from Boom Studios' Lumberjanes. Rosie is the kind of character that you suspect normally spends her time fighting monsters and just acts as camp director for Miss Kinzilla Thisquin Paniquil Thistle Crumpets Camp for Hardcore Lady Types in her spare time. Try saying that 55 times in a row, Jesus. Neither the heroines of this story nor the audience knows that much about her, save that she's eccentric and incredibly resourceful, not to mention a wee bit too quick to suggest and acts as a solution to interpersonal conflicts. Number 7, Savage Dragon, Image Comics. One of the original Image Comics superheroes and one of the premier characters of the creative first movement led by Image back in the early to mid 90s, Savage Dragon has a place in the hearts of many older comic book fans. Though yes, the character is indicative of those tropes at the time, his creator had been trying to get him off the ground for almost a decade prior to Image picking him up, so the compromise is understandable to finally get the book published. The dragon plays no favorites. If you're doing wrong in the world, he stands against you. Sure, he was big and muscle-bound and often carried large guns, like all other early Image characters, but what saved him from going the way of Youngblood was his humanity. Number 6, Miracleman, Eclipse Comics. When it comes to the rise of darker, grittier superhero comics in the 80s and 90s, the usual suspects of kicking the whole shebang off include Batman: The Dark Knight Returns and The Killing Joke, and even Alan Moore's Watchmen. But there's another Alan Moore comic that tends to be forgotten in the lineup, Miracleman. Originally created back in the Silver Age as essentially a Shazam clone, the character eventually evolved into quite a bit more thanks to Moore and fellow writer Neil Gaiman. And since those two writers aren't exactly known for writing happy rainbow sunshine stories, you can make an educated guess for yourself as to what we mean by evolved. It gets dark. Like, really dark, as in Watchmen was more taking it down a notch dark. The violence and dark tone was often excessive, but Miracleman also took time to lay the groundwork for the superheroes as God story idea that will be explored in different ways by the Big Two and others later on. Like with the rest of Alan Moore's early work, the violence may have been excessive, but the writing was just good enough to keep you hooked issue by issue. Number 5, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, IDW. Okay, I know. First off, the Turtles started out in Mirage Comics. I get that. Second, there are 4 of them, and seeing as how each entry has focused on one character specifically so far, this is probably a bit of a cop-out, and you're goddamn right it is. Look, I love the Turtles. The heroes in a half shell have been going strong since the late 80s, and though we all might have our own favourites, none is necessarily superior over the other. Personally, Raph's my fave, but it'd be mean to focus on one over the other, especially in the context of IDW's superb TMNT books. Those comics are great because of how they complicate and evolve the brothers' dynamic. Please go check them out if you haven't already. Number 4, Optimus Prime, Marvel. What's that? You're putting another cartoon character in this list of comic book characters? Well, the joke's on you, pal, because the Transformers were actually comic book characters before they were toys. I won't bother going into specifics here, you should all go check out the Toys That Made Us on Netflix for a more in-depth look, but the Autobots, the Decepticons, and pretty much most of what we've come to know about the Transformers came from Marvel in the early 80s. The beloved Denny O'Neil was the man who came up with the name for Optimus Prime, and yeah, while the Transformers aren't as synonymous with comics as they are with animation, they still count. Yes, I know this was Marvel's creation originally, and the entire point of the list is to spotlight characters not from DC or Marvel, but hey, they haven't featured in the main Marvel universe, and they've been bandied around to different publishers in the decades since, including IDW, so they're technically not Marvel characters in the traditional sense. Please don't hate me. Number 3, Spawn, Image Comics. When talking about the best, or at least the most influential comic book characters outside of the big two, Spawn is going to come up at some point or another. And if you know even the tiniest amount about what Image Comics was up to in the early to mid 90s, you know exactly why. At the top of his game, Spawn wasn't just famous, he was an institution, the breakout star of Image Comics and the golden boy of the comic book indie scene. For those not in the know, Spawn was once a hired assassin named Al Simmons. Like all hired guns, at some point he pissed off his employers and got a lovely kerosene makeover as a result. However, because the main theme of Spawn is that the universe just kinda hates our buddy Al, he's roped into a supernatural bargain by an eldritch demon, allowing him to return to Earth only to find his enemies in power, his wife remarried, and him barely remembering anything from his previous life. Spawn may have succumbed to the very speculator boom his creators helped to blow up, but in his prime, the hype was real. Spawn was precisely what the comic book reading public needed at the time, and his best stories still hold up, which is way more than what we can say for Nightwatch. Number 2, Alana, Image Comics. Image may have been at their most popular back in the early 90s, but don't think they've been slacking off since then. In fact, most comic book aficionados consider their best work to come after the 90s. The entire main cast of Saga is fantastic, but the best character overall has to be the mother of our story's narrator, Alana. Alana is a soldier in a war between two species, who in true love story fashion fell hard for a soldier on the opposite end of the conflict. Problem enough already, but the hammer really came down on them when they had a child, prompting both of their races to disown them and every bounty hunter in the galaxy to come gunning for them. Saga is far from over yet, so there's no telling what the universe will throw at this Tiger Mom when it returns. But whatever comes, if it's coming after Alana's baby, it better bring all its friends. And number 1, Hellboy, Dark Horse Comics. Mike Mignola's legendary series has not only helped to put Dark Horse Comics on the map and help it become a force to be reckoned with in the late 90s and into the 2000s, but Hellboy is one of the most consistent characters in comic book history. No rewrites, no retcons, no games. And on top of that, the character is insanely compelling. Whereas other comics, even the best independent stuff, relies on a strong supporting cast, some of the best Hellboy adventures have very few, if anyone, tagging along. Instead, they showcase the luscious visuals of Mike Mignola's pencils to exude a truly brilliant atmosphere. He is at once a gruff, world-weary soldier, a defiant would-be bringer of the apocalypse, and a quiet, contemplative, kind soul. There's a reason most of the supporting cast that makes up the BPRD have the shared backstory detail of, and then Hellboy showed up and was nice to me, so now I'll follow him into hell, and it's because he's such an upstanding individual. There are countless other characters from the Mignolaverse who could probably have made it onto here, including the likes of Abe Sapien, Johann Kraus, and Lobster Johnson, but Anung Unrama reigns supreme. Long may his rule continue. And that was our list. Who is your favourite non-Marvel/DC comic book character? Please remember to post your thoughts down in the comments below, like, share, and subscribe, and head back on over to whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every day. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at @YouandRunesThings, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!
Look, my son, look at the marvel that I have created. Comics. They called me a fool for trying to put a dead meme onto a t-shirt. A damn bold fool! A damn bold fool with an ass that won't quit. It got quite personal towards the end there. But look who's laughing now! Quiet! Quiet, my son, my ugly son. For my other creation rises. Look at the quality fabric, hand-stitched by blind orphans. The perfect letter spacing calculated so meticulously that Rich Hudson had an erection for months about it. And a colouring so deep that I had to buy the dye off the dark web. Oh, for God's sake, Josh!
Sorry.
Marvel. Oh no, the beast has grown angry, angered by our drab fashion choices. I am such a fool to think that it wouldn't try to infect us with its perfect design. Quick, we must do something to appease the beast. Why don't we buy one from shop.whatculture.com? Look, it's already got Scott Nash. Oh no! But where can I buy one? Are you kidding me? This is why I don't give you any extra lines. But also at shop.whatculture.com. Quick, let's go and buy one right now. Let's go buy one right now. Right now. Oh, don't you try hard now. You've already lost your bit. Oscar's in the f***ing bin. There we go. Doesn't that look better? I feel so virile and alive, and it's also fixed your hump. That's actually pretty good. Now do yourself a favour and act like your mum and spread the love, aka her legs, and buy yourself one of these glorious dead memes on a t-shirt, courtesy of this handsome chap right here. You're very, very welcome. Cut! Jesus Christ, mine is so itchy.
It's all wet. What?
It stinks.
I pissed on yours.
The worst font ever. I want to die.